Hey everyone, I'm Rob and welcome to the test drive. Today, I'm driving the first ever all-new 2018 BMW X2. Now, the first time I ever saw the X2 and actually got to sit in one was at the 2018 North American International Auto Show in Detroit at the beginning of this year. I was kind of confused as to why there was an X2. Yeah, it looks good and there are a lot of things I liked about it, but there's the X1 and then you had the X3, which is kind of the more mid-level, and then the X5, and obviously we have the X4 and the X6 kind of being their own unique thing, but what was really the purpose of the X2? Now, again, I really liked it when I saw it. I thought it looked good, thought it was a cool idea, and after having driven it for the last couple of days, I have a lot of things to say about the X2. So in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this SUV, what it's like to drive, and basically give you the information to decide for yourself if the X2 is something worth taking a look at, and I think it is. So we're gonna start with the exterior of the 2018 BMW X2. Now, like I said, this is the first X2 ever, and I think that in comparison to the X1, it looks significantly more aggressive. I love the front end. I love that it's a little boxier, a little more SUV-like than the X1, versus the X1 looks kind of more hatchback-like. Just the beefiness of the front is almost uncharacteristic of an SUV or a vehicle, really, this size. I love the look of the headlights. I love the daytime running lamps as well. It has that signature BMW headlight look. And I love the size of the kidney grills in this SUV. Now, from the side, it looks really good. It does look very small, and it is, but it kind of has a fun factor. And again, it just looks more SUV-like than hatchback-like, and I really like that. Another unique element that I like is to the right of the rear passenger doors, you have a BMW emblem, and it's kind of an odd place for a vehicle emblem. Obviously, front and rear and in the middle of the rim are pretty common places, but to have it there, I think just looks really good. And it may have just been BMW trying to figure out what to put there, because that area is probably too small to put a window. You don't have side windows in the trunk, you just have the rear windshield. Now, getting to the interior of the 2018 BMW X2. For the size of vehicle, this is not bad in here. You do have a decent amount of room. The driver and front passenger have an okay amount of room in between the two. These seats do feel a little bit narrower than some other vehicles. And then the back seat is actually not that small. I'm 6 feet tall and I was able to sit behind myself with reasonable comfort. Now, my knees were pretty much touching the seat in front of me. To put a larger or taller person back there might be somewhat uncomfortable. I didn't have a ton of headroom above where my head was, maybe 2-3 inches at the most. But you do also have this nice large panoramic moonroof as a $1,300 option, and I think that's so necessary in a vehicle this size. It just makes it feel more open and makes it feel bigger than it is. So I liked it. The one that I'm driving today has that. This X2 is also a very comfortable place to be. The seats in the one that I'm driving are the Sensatec, which is not real leather necessarily. There are leather elements to the interior of this car, but it still feels really nice, and you wouldn't really notice that much of a difference between that and the Dakota leather. I mean, the Dakota leather is softer, it does feel nicer, but this doesn't feel like it's that far below the Dakota leather in terms of comfort. So I do like that for the standard surfaces. You also get a nice soft steering wheel. It looks very modern as well. I like the look of it. And just the look in here with the center stack and everything looks nice. And it looks modern as well. And you have a decent sized trunk for how small this car is. You couldn't really fit a golf bag back there very well. You could put one of the rear seats down, but it still is a decent sized trunk for this car. I also love that a black headliner comes standard in the X2. I think that is so necessary. Now getting to the performance of the X2. I'm driving is the xDrive 28i, and I don't really know what the purpose of the naming is because there's only one engine option in the X2, and that is a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder producing 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And that's a decent amount from what it sounds like, but actually for how lightweight this vehicle is and how small it is, it actually makes it pretty quick. I mean, it goes 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds according to BMW, so I have a feeling that because most manufacturers understate that number a little bit, it could probably get closer to 6 seconds. So for a turbocharged 4-cylinder, very small crossover SUV, I think that is pretty good. Not a vehicle that's built for performance, but it can perform and it's fun to drive. And here's the other thing too. This 4-cylinder actually sounds pretty good. I mean, it is a 4-cylinder. It doesn't have that low grunt of a V8 or anything like that, or even of a V6. It doesn't sound as angry, but it sounds good. And a lot of that is probably BMW piping in some sound, but even what they did with the mufflers, this car sounds good from the outside as well. I'll let you listen to a cold start. Getting that audible feedback versus what you typically see in vehicles in this class that just don't really offer that fun performance factor a lot of times. I like what BMW did with the X2 to make it more fun. Now, it also rides really nicely. It has a pretty soft ride. There is an upgrade package that gives you some sportier handling characteristics, as well as gives you dampeners to make the ride even softer when you are riding in comfort mode. But even in its base form, pretty much like the one that I'm driving, it's a lot of fun to drive. It also handles pretty decently. It is a smaller vehicle, so it's going to handle better than an X5 or even an X3. As with most modern BMWs, you do have several different driving modes. This one has 3. It has Eco Pro being the most economical, making the throttle the least responsive. Then you have Comfort mode, which is your regular everyday driving mode. And then you have Sport, which does stiffen up the steering as well as sharpens the shift and throttle response. And then this does have the auto start stop feature that I don't particularly care for. I turn it off every time I get in this vehicle, but some people do like that, and most vehicles now are coming standard with this feature. And that said, this X2 does get pretty good fuel economy. 21 in the city being okay, but then 31 on the highway is really good. And this is the xDrive all-wheel drive version. There is an S-Drive front-wheel drive version, but I would definitely not consider getting this in front wheel drive just from the torque steer aspect. With the amount of torque that it has, 258 pound-feet, I feel like just wouldn't quite be as fun, but it is a little bit cheaper, and if you don't need all-wheel drive, you do have that option. This X2 also has the 8-speed Steptronic automatic. It shifts really nicely. It doesn't feel like it has too many gears, doesn't feel like it's clunky. Another thing that's interesting with this X2 is that it doesn't have the typical BMW shifter where it's always in one position and you push forward to go in reverse or push back to go into drive. It has an actual normal shifter that goes from park to reverse to neutral to drive. This does not have paddle shifters, but even the slap shift functionality when you have it in manual, it's not very responsive. It takes a few seconds at times to shift. It's nice to have that functionality, but it's not like what you would have in a performance vehicle. Now, getting to the technology in the 2018 X2, there are quite a lot of add-ons that you can put in this X2 to give yourself more technology, more safety features. At the base level, which is where the technology in this one is, you still have a pretty nice screen. It's not the full size iDrive screen, it's a little bit smaller, but it does give you a lot of the functionality. One kind of odd thing with it is that it doesn't have satellite radio, at least the one that I'm driving for some reason doesn't have that. It does not have navigation built in, but you can add the navigation business package that is $950, and then on top of that you can add Apple CarPlay for only $300. It's not a touch screen, so you do control it with the scroll wheel. You also have a decent backup camera in it as well, and then you can add some very inexpensive safety and driver assistance packages to this X2 as well. Now, a couple interesting quirks that I found while I was driving this X2 over the last couple days. One of them is the way that the cup holders are designed, the way that they are kind of down low, but then you have this weird kind of divider between the edge of the right cup holder and the front passenger seat. So it's a little bit awkward for the front passenger to have to reach so far down around this divider to pick up their beverage, depending what it is. If it's a small cup of coffee, that could be a little bit awkward. A larger bottle of water, maybe not so much. Really not a big deal, just something interesting I noticed. Another thing, while this X2 does have push button start, it does not have the proximity key functionality. So you actually have to take the key out of your pocket, unlock the doors, and then you can get in here. I feel like it would have been really easy to add that functionality, but it doesn't have it. The other thing that I didn't realize at first is that there's no normal latch to open up the trunk. So I was pulling out the remote every time, holding down the trunk release button on the remote, and it would open automatically because it is a power lift gate. Now, I thought that was kind of weird that it didn't have any other way of opening the trunk. I didn't really think too much about it, and then I discovered that if you actually push in the BMW logo, that you can actually open it up that way. Thought that was kind of an interesting quirk about this X2. I really like the design. I think it's cool, but if you're somebody who maybe isn't used to this car, is driving it for the first time and isn't with the owner or something like that, then you might not know how to open up the trunk other than with the remote. So bottom line, I think the X2 is a very cool, pretty nice, small vehicle, and I really did enjoy driving it. I think it's worth taking a look at. The one that I'm testing is just under $40,000, and obviously you can add some packages, make it a little bit more expensive, but you do get quite a lot of value for the money, at least in my opinion. So again, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm Rob. This is the test drive. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please hit that subscribe button to support the channel. You'll also be eligible for all the giveaways that we have going on. I will be announcing a new giveaway soon. And again, thank you for taking this test drive with me. I'll talk to you soon.